Ever found yourself wrestling with the unpredictable dance of grief? You know that moment when the wave of grief just crashes in just as you are mapping out your holiday plans. Join us on this emotional journey as we navigate the grief and creativity with Jess Hooper, an artist and yogi and the mastermind behind Creative Current. Jess candidly shares her experience of her mother's passing and how vital the importance of self-care and creativity was and is in her life. We uncover practical strategies for tackling the roller coaster of emotions the holiday season tends to unleash. From intentional painting to unveiling the magic question that can shift your perspective and anchor you into the present. If you're new here, you're listening to the How We Get Through podcast, a place for you to feel connected through deep and meaningful conversations. I'm your host, Jen, a licensed therapist and founder and CEO of the How We Get Through app. My mission is to bring you affordable and diverse therapy resources to help you get through the hard stuff, all in one place and at your own pace. Welcome to the How We Get Through community. Hello, and welcome back to the How We Get Through podcast. This is such a special episode today. I am with Jess Hooper, who is the owner of Creative Current, and she is an artist and a yogi. And we're so excited to have her on. And she also dabbles in a little bit of woo like myself, correct?
Correct. Woo dabbler.
Woo dabbler. Curious of the woo. Jess is formerly from New Jersey, a Jersey girl, which I used to go every summer. So I love that. And now she resides in South Carolina.
That's correct.
I got it right. Not
you
north.
did it.
Jess, thank you so much for being here. This is so exciting. We met through a mutual friend, Leslie, who's also on the How We Get Through app. And just kind of became fast friends in life, business, motherhood, and all the things. So excited to have you here.
I am so excited to be here and honored. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so we start off every episode, everyone knows this by now, but with a mental health myth, and we would love to know yours.
Yeah, so I think the mental health myth that I'd love to bust is the concept that I've seen portrayed in movies and TV shows that grief is this beautiful linear thing that comes in these perfect stages of sadness, anger, denial, acceptance, whatever it may be. But I just think that that's so far from the truth. It can go all over the place. It's completely chaotic. The most accurate connection to me was something one of my friends told me when my mom passed, was that grief is like an ocean. And that, it hit me in the gut, right? For a lot of different reasons. Because number one, my mom was obsessed with the ocean.
Oh.
She spent every waking moment she could there. Even when she was sick, she would walk there, collect sea glass. But when you really get into it and you look at all the different analogies of grief and different, phases of the ocean and versions of the ocean, they are so interconnected. Just looking at how it could be frozen, right? And when you're going through grief and you lose somebody, you could be completely numb from it, or it can be totally connected with a swell, right? Waves that come and they're smaller. Here's a big one, here it comes, and you can predict it. Or it can bubble up out of nowhere and you're at the grocery store and some song comes on and you're sobbing next to a stranger looking like a crazy person. And so many other different ways that can really, a lot of different connections that I found with the ocean and the way that I was feeling. So when my friend Kathy said that to me, I kind of turned it into an art prompt. And then, I used it as a 5-minute meditation each day where I would try to check in. I would complete a watercolor of what was resonating with me that day. Was it the tsunami coming for me, this giant wave about to crash? Or am I, feeling a little bursts? Or am I actually calm? Right. And then there's even the other side of it where, the ocean's beautiful, right? It's absolutely gorgeous. And something that's come up recently through following a lot of different grief pages and things like that is that grief is beautiful. And at first you're
Yeah. No, thank you.
This is not beautiful. This is very uncomfortable and I don't want to be here anymore. But the saying that came behind that was that in order for you to hurt so badly, you must have loved so deeply. So that is, the other side of it. And then there's these little glimmers, right? Little reflections of the sun off of the ocean surface. And it's like when my kid tilts her head to the left and smiles, I'm like, there's my mom.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah. So it's like, anyway, back to the myth. It is not linear. It is not perfect. You don't just like upswing and then everything's fine. It can be any version of the storm any day.
Yeah. It's interesting too, as you make that analogy, I think of the moon and the sun and the tides, and there's something cyclical with that as well. And I'm just wondering like what your thoughts on that. I think of like seasons or holidays or birthdays or anniversaries, something cyclical in that nature. Like that's that connection. But I'm wondering what you make of that.
No, you're like right on point with kind of where I am right now, because we're coming up on the holiday season.
Yeah.
And finding new triggers, old memories will surface and things will come up that way. And it can help you kind of in anticipation of these things. Be like, all right, this is coming up. What can I do to kind of prepare myself for that? Because I know that this is going to be a trigger and I know that this is going to be hard. And right now, actually, this weekend was, it's 1 year since the last time she came to visit me. It's been an entire year since she's been in my home. And I'm starting to notice the cyclical nature of things. And I'm starting to kind of, you feel it. You just feel it like in your energy, and it almost like welcomes it back, right? Okay, last time she was here was a year ago. Now I can almost like kind of revisit that presence. Yeah. Because my surroundings are exactly the same. My home is the same. The trees look the same outside. We do get the change of color and leaves in South Carolina.
Yes. What's that like? What's that?
Yeah. I was nervous when we moved here that we wouldn't have that anymore, but we get like the best of everything here. But anyway, like the surroundings are the same. So you can kind of like lean into it instead of like running from it.
Yeah. I'm like teary as you're saying that. And I haven't lost a parent yet. And, but there's like something kind of really warm in it too. It's like, it's both and, right? But it almost like invites itself back in some way, again, in that cyclical nature of like timing. Like when you say you like felt it in your bones, or I can't remember exactly what you said, but that like an energy that you're so attuned to, it's like this welcoming back of the sadness, but also the joy in whatever that looks like.
Totally. And that like takes me to, what you just said. I believe strongly in mantras, visualization, breath work, all that fun stuff. But the mantra that really helped me through the, lengthy anticipatory grief period, as well as a post-loss grief period, is that joy and grief can coexist. It's so confusing to be experiencing that, right? Like in the same breath, I can be laughing at something my kid's doing and at the same time feel crushed and start crying because my mom's not going to witness that, or that they're not going to have the same type of interaction with her. So it took a long time for me to accept that joy and grief can coexist. And it's so hard to communicate it. You're first going through it. You're like, I don't understand what's happening. And I'd say to my husband, I'm like, I'm so sad, but I'm like happy in this moment. Like I like what's happening right now, but like I'm devastated, right? Yeah. It's just so hard to understand what you're feeling when it's upside down.
Yeah, totally. I would love for you to walk us through your journey, if that's okay, in regards to your mom and the move, were you having a baby? Like
everything.
What happened?
Yeah. So I call the fall of 21 like this like catalyst of change. I just had so many major life changes happen pretty much all at once. So my mom was diagnosed with cancer in September that year. And I knew it wasn't going to be good just based on the type of cancer that she had. And I was 8 months pregnant when she was diagnosed. So 2 months later, I give birth to this like beautiful giant baby who has been, I kind of call her like my security blanket. Like she was like, my, service animals people have, but she was like my snuggle buddy through like this whole thing. Yeah. So she was, perfect and healthy and still like the happiest kid ever.
How much did she weigh?
Oh, she was 9'4".
Okay.
Nothing crazy, but, not tiny.
Yes. My last was 10'11", so but it's a boy. And C-section, sunroofed out, so
sunroofed
spared me a little, but not that much.
Well, on the very same day that she was born, actually, my father-in-law suffered an accident and had a life-changing injury that day.
What was it?
And then he fell and injured his neck, and that kind of changed a lot of things for him.
Wow.
So he was going through that. My husband was kind of, secondhand going through that. My mom was going through what she was going through. I had this brand new baby.
And
I
you
also
have
had
another, yes.
My other daughter was 4.5 at the time. There's more. So then after that, 2 weeks later, my husband was offered a job in South Carolina. We were all living in New Jersey. My family lived in New Jersey, still pretty much does. We're kind of pulling them down, like one group at a time, though. So we're getting them here. So he was offered a job down here. A few days later, my grandfather passed away.
Wow.
So it was just like everything all at once. And then in January, we pulled the trigger and we just moved down to South Carolina. So grappling with making that decision was just like insane, and like postpartum hormones. The recent diagnosis of my mom, trying to figure out, do I stay? Do I go? But my husband was just amazing through the whole thing. Like, you don't want to go, we're not going. I'm not going to harbor any resentment. Like, you have to do what you think is best here. So it was a really hard decision. I think it was like the second hardest decision I ever made, but ultimately a great decision. We love it here. We've never been to Bluffton, South Carolina. Get down here. It's freaking gorgeous.
I gotta go.
It's like magic. Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, we moved down here. We didn't know a single person that was getting used to having 2 kids instead of 1, with like no support system around, and the uncertainty with my mom and her condition. So, fortunately, shortly after we got here, they thought they got it. They thought they had removed all of her cancer. And she really thought that she was, going to beat this thing. And I think at that point, we all kind of like, took a breath,
Yeah.
Nothing was showing up on the scans, but she still showed some counts. Some of her blood counts were still showing numbers, not 0. So we knew something was still lingering, but we weren't super, super worried anymore. And then they waited a few months to do scans when they thought that it was clear. And then it came back that it was in her liver, and then it was in her lymph nodes, and it had spread pretty quickly in that time without treatment.
Wow.
And then she wasn't responsive to chemo after that. So I think what really kicked in for me when I heard it was back was the anticipatory grief. Like, that is when I fully was just like succumbed to that. And if you don't know what that is, that hopefully means you've never experienced it, and I hope you never do. But that is the period of time where someone you love is going to pass. You have no idea how long you have left with them, and you're also trying to like do normal day-to-day things with that just like hanging right here and just never leaving your side. Trying to make normal decisions, trying to navigate motherhood while you're inside just falling apart. So that's when that really, really hit me. And that's actually the first time in my life I sought out therapy. And it was one of the best decisions I think I've ever made. I don't honestly know how I probably would have made it through without her support and her expertise through the whole process. It took me a while to find the right one. She's the best. She's the best.
Was she a grief specialist?
So get this, she's specialized in moms, and that's kind of why I sought her out. And I didn't know until our first session that her background was in grief counseling, and she had worked in like oncology centers. So it was like, perfect.
There's the woo. There's the body
there's
chills.
The woo. There it is.
The alignment.
Wow. And I love her. It's like weird. Like I didn't know that I would be like missing her on like weeks I don't have session. I'm like, man, I really miss her.
Yes.
I didn't know that it could be that way. I thought it was just gonna be like all pain and like, conjuring things up like that. But anyway, she was and still is helping me every step of the way. So she helped me figure out a lot of the things that I was missing. I was having anticipatory grief makes you so anxious. You're waiting every moment for the other shoe to drop. You're waiting for that phone call with the bad news constantly. So I was having anxiety attacks all the time. I was ragey mom, which is not my character. I'm usually like a super peaceful person, but like I was flipping out all the time on my kids just because I was so hypersensitive and overreactive to everything.
Well, you felt out of control.
Totally,
right?
Because you have no control over any of it, right?
Yeah.
You're just like, you don't know when it's going to happen, and you don't know how long you have. So during that period, I knew that I needed to figure something out. Like I couldn't keep being that way. So what was huge for me was just getting grounded. Like that was what was missing. I wasn't going to be able to change the overall emotions that were going on, like the sadness, the worry, the everything else that goes along with it. But I can at least center my body and the physical experience that I was having. I wound up doing a ton of breath work, and that helps me everywhere. That's why I love breath work. Like I could be talking to you and like still doing it, or like, wherever I am, I can just like, just coming back to your breath awareness. It doesn't always have to be like this formal, sitting and, zenning out the whole time, or like, counting breath work, which I love, but it can just be something as simple as acknowledging the inhale and appreciating the exhale, like as you're talking to somebody. And that just helps just get grounded, get centered, and just be aware of the present moment.
I would love everyone to do that right now.
Yeah.
You're listening to that?
Totally.
Notice
just wherever you are. Exactly. Just if you're driving, keep your eyes open. But
yes.
If you're hanging out, just take a minute, just close your eyes and just feel the way that the breath feels on the top of your lip entering into your nostrils, and then sigh it all out. Just let it out, or breathe it out through your nose and feel it cascading over your lips. Just be aware of the breath coming in and the breath coming out. It's just a great way to get centered no matter where you are and what you're doing.
I love that, because I think when you said that, I was like, what? You can do that right now? Like, which makes so much sense. But I think there's so much like breath work, mindfulness. There's 10 minutes out of your day in a quiet space. Like there's so many barriers that I think we've put around grounding and what it should look like and how it should feel, that we forget we have the essence in us every second of the day.
Totally. And especially like as moms, we've got kids like crawling up us. Like, how are we supposed to find a quiet corner? Like that's the
zero quiet corners for us.
There's no quiet corners. Quiet corners is me hiding in the bathtub with the curtain drawn covering my ears. Like that's the best I can do.
Exactly.
Getting grounded, whatever that looks like for you. Like maybe you do have a quiet corner and you can find it and you can hang out there and you can get centered that way, and you can do some box breathing, 4 counts in, 4 count hold, 4 count exhale, 4 count hold. That's huge for me. That's like when I'm about to have a panic attack or anxiety attack, I'd have to find that quiet space and do that, and that'll help me get centered. But just something as simple as that.
When you talk about having a panic attack, do you feel like those still sneak up on you where you are in your stage of grief, or where does that land for you?
At this point, I don't. I do think that grief sneaks up on me, right? But not the overwhelming heartbeat racing, can't catch my breath, can't see straight kind of things. That hasn't happened since the anticipatory period. That hasn't happened since her loss, because I think so much of that was in the lack of control and so much of the uncertainty and all the unknowns that came along with it. And the distance, I was down here. My mom was in New Jersey. So I last saw her, not the last time I saw her, but I had seen her in January, the end of January last year, first week of February. And she was okay enough to be like up and about still, right? She had one day where she couldn't leave the couch because she was in so much pain, but the rest of it, she was with it enough to have a conversation and interact with the kids. And then from that first week of February until mid-March, things just like spiraled so quickly. And it was impossible to know, like, when do I go up there? Like, do I go up there tomorrow? And then there was always something, but my family there taking care of her, I will never understand their experience. I didn't see it firsthand, and I can't ever express to them how much I appreciate all they did. They dedicated their lives to, making her comfortable. But we never knew when it was serious enough, right? We never knew how bad is it really. She never wanted to know her prognosis. So we
No way.
She didn't want to know how long she had. She didn't want to know how bad it was. She didn't want to know the numbers, which made it so hard. And I can't say that I blame her for that, right? You don't know how you would really react to it unless you're in it. But for like somebody on the outside, she had bile duct cancer, which is very similar to pancreatic cancer. And my experience with that was only through my husband's family members. He had to pass from that very rapidly. Like it was very quick. So from her diagnosis, I was kind of like, all right, this is not going to be good. But she and I have to give her so much credit for it. Like, she fought to the bitter end, and she never gave up her faith or her hope. But anyway, she didn't want to know how bad it really was when it was really bad. So
It's so hard for you.
gauging when to go up there was really difficult. It was always like, well, she's got a doctor's appointment, in 10 days. So let's see what the results are from that and then decide whether to come up. So I made it up there by mid-April. And at that point, she was with us physically, but she was on, so many pain medicines and everything that time for meaningful conversation had passed, right? I kind of like missed my window. I didn't go up there as soon as I wanted. So there was a lot of angst and regret there. So that was a lot to unpack.
Yeah.
But yeah, finding my ways of getting grounded through that, finding different things to lean on through it. My mantras of joy and grief can coexist. Visualization, the other part, that was good too. Just trying to, if you do find that quiet moment, like, what do I want to call in? Like, what does the best version of me look like today? I don't need to worry about what the best version of me 10 years looks like, because I'm just trying to get through today. Yeah. And that's really all you can do in those circumstances. And, find your things to lean on, find your people to lean on.
Yeah. Was your mom okay with you moving and was like, absolutely go move? Or was that like, what was that like?
Great question. I was I was so scared to tell her. Scared. So if I can just elaborate on that a little more. So my husband was offered the job in South Carolina, right? And then my grandfather passed a few days later. He was scheduled to her stepdad, who was very, very prominent in our lives. And the day that he was scheduled to be in South Carolina happened to overlap with the day of the funeral. So my husband, he was like, what do you want me to do? I was like, go. Like, you're not going to get this, you might not get this chance again. Go. So I had to like make up some crazy lie for why he wasn't at my grandfather's funeral.
Right. Because
I didn't want to tell her unless we were actually going to do it. Right. I didn't want to alarm her because she had enough to worry about. And, then I told her, she was exactly like, she was torn. She was so split. She was devastated that we were going, but she was so happy for us, for what the move meant for us and for our family and how it was going to, change our futures and all that fun stuff. But I could also tell that she was devastated that we were going to be away from her, especially, under the circumstances. With the new baby.
And her.
Yeah, it was definitely hard. I mean, my dad, thank God for my dad. I told him, right, I was like, Dad, listen, this is what's going on. Like, I can't tell her.
Yeah, right.
And he was like, listen, don't tell her until you're sure. He's like, just, nope, tell her when you're certain. So I always felt like I had his support 100%, through every aspect of it. Yeah.
Yeah. And do you have siblings as well?
I do. I'm smack dab in the middle. Yeah. I've got an older sister and a younger sister.
And they
were both like lived within a mile. Yeah, a mile from my mom.
Okay.
Everybody was right there. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we talk, obviously, I think another layer of grief in families too is that everybody deals with it differently.
Oh my God, yes. Yeah. So differently. And especially like being, geographically, like grief can be so isolating and so lonely because nobody has the exact same experience. Like, yes, my sisters also lost their mom, but their experience was totally different. My older sister was there taking care of her, witnessing and like worrying that she was going to stop breathing every day. And then my little sister is finishing up school in college. So like, she's kind of trying to figure out, how do you mentally do that and also worry about your mother? And then my dad, it's his partner, they met in high school. They were always together. Like that, his experience is totally different. He gave his everything to her, to keeping her comfortable until her very last breath. So it can feel really isolating because you're like, nobody truly understands how I feel. And I can't even figure out the right words to convey that. Right.
Yeah. Especially in the waves, because it might hit you at different times. It's going to feel different. Or anniversaries or holidays are going to feel different.
Yeah. I'm like, the holidays are creeping up, and I'm like,
is this your first or second holiday? I can't.
That's okay. No, she passed this past May. Yeah. So this is the first holiday. Yeah.
This May.
First holiday season.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So, timing is always interesting. So she passed on, my sister's wedding anniversary. And then my daughter turned 6 a few days later. And then Mother's Day was 2 days after that. So that was my first like holiday, and of course it's Mother's Day, right? And why would it be any other holiday?
Yes. Right.
And then my birthday was like 2 days after that. So like, it's just crazy. So I'm going into this holiday season lining up my tools. That's what I'm really leaning into. Like, what am I going to use to get grounded? What am I going to use to recenter myself? Where am I going to say no? That's the other big thing. Like, I'm coming into, everybody's having holidays in different places and different traditions. And I'm really giving myself the grace this year that if I'm just physically and energetically, like, that doesn't feel like I will be okay. No, I'm not going to do it. I'm just not going to do it. I'm going to do the max that I can for my kids, so that they can have a magical Christmas, holiday season. But aside from that, I'm taking it easy.
Yeah. Which means like maybe not going back to Jersey. Is that the vibe?
It does.
Okay.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. And, I'm grappling with that still too.
Right.
My whole family's up there. But I've taken 4 trips to New Jersey in the past year, especially like surrounding the time when she passed, back and forth and lugging my kids, the whole time too. It's a 12-hour drive. It's not,
wow,
the worst, but it's still 12 hours.
No,
with
that's
2
a
kids.
lot. Yes. Yes.
Yeah. And I've done it by myself a couple times too. So
Wow.
it gets a little crazy. And I really like sat with that and really had a hard time making the decision. And I just feel like it will be harder to go there in every way, right? It'll be harder to be in her home without her, to see my family without her, and also logistics, right? Traveling with kids for the holidays is a pain in the ass.
Yes. It is a energy drainer.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to kind of know where your limits are. And it's funny that, we're talking about it now, but I've been talking about the holidays with my therapist for 2 months.
Yes. I
2
love
months
that.
ago, I'm like, I am dreading this already because I know that I'm not going to be awesome. I'm going to pretend and I'm going to try and I'm going to put that fake smile on for everybody else. But inside, I'm just going to want to go to bed.
Yeah. Yeah. And so how much though are you actually processing now? And can also, I think, be open to a different experience as it comes. Do you know what I mean? I mean, I've had other things in my life where it's like I'm already grieving something that has not happened yet. And so there's room and space for me when that day comes that I don't know how I'm going to feel, right? Like this space around, can I just like notice that instead of trying to predict that it's going to be X, Y, and Z?
Yes. So that's something, again, I worked with my therapist on. In the anticipation period before her passing. And basically what we boiled down to was I was always, before my mom passed, nobody really knew what she wanted. Nobody had that conversation as far as I know.
With funeral?
And just like in general, did
she seem avoidant of kind of all the things then?
A little bit. I think she really wanted to just hold on to hope and
I see. Yeah.
And then honestly, she progressed so rapidly when it took over. I think that she just didn't have a chance at that point mentally to sit with it because of physically where she was at and side effects of everything. So I think it kind of crept up, I guess would be the better way for it. But so I wanted to have that conversation. I wanted to be like, almost like, hey, this isn't looking good. Is there anything you want to tell me? Is there anything you want to say to me or like my kids or anything you want anybody to know specifically? Is there anything special you want, for your services? Any song you want us to play or like,
right.
Do you not want anybody to do certain things? What is it that you want? I wanted to have that conversation for me, because dealing with the decision to me like, well, is this what you wanted? Was kind of overwhelming. But I was talking about trying to have that conversation with my therapist. It's like, I'm nervous about it. What if she shuts down, right? What if she like shuts me out or like, always going to the worst case scenario. I'm like, she doesn't want to have this conversation. If she did, we would have already had it. So we wound up coming up with like, all right, Jess, what is the worst case scenario? What is the best case scenario? And what's something somewhere in the middle? So that's a process that I kind of go back to for pretty much anything now. So I have a huge, maybe it's just the anxiety side of me where I'm always projecting into the future and I'm always projecting worst case scenario. So coming back to that for anything at this point where like, something's coming up and I think it's going to be awful. Well, what if it's not, right? What if it's not awful? And I use this thing in my programs. I call the magic question. And I think everybody can come up with your own magic question. But my magic question is, what if the opposite were true? Right? So anytime I'm telling myself something negative or I'm making a negative assumption about a circumstance, okay, well, what if the opposite were true? And I sit with that. So there's my piece for you. Like always come back to like, well, what if the opposite were true if you're projecting into the negative?
Yes, exactly. And I think that's, really important. And I talk to my clients as well, is like, if you're going to hold this side, right?
Yeah.
Don't forget that there's this other side as well, because darkness cannot live without light. Pain cannot live without joy, right? It is energetically matched. So worst case scenario, are you going to live through that? I think you will, but it's going to be painful if it's worse. And also, what is the best? And it is that kind of grounding part of like, you don't have to believe the best case scenario because our brains are wired to survive. So we go to worst case scenario, especially as moms. The Roman Empire thing on TikTok? I don't know if you've seen that. It's like men think about the Roman Empire like almost every day, whatever. So everyone's like, what's the women's version of a Roman Empire? And it's like getting assaulted or my kids getting hurt. You know what I mean? It's like we're constantly surveying, is this environment safe? Am I safe?
Yeah,
what is the worst case scenario? Especially being postpartum, right? And with grief and all these other things. And so our nervous systems are primed and exhausted and burnt out because we haven't done enough of the grounding work, which I'm hearing you do, especially as moms, though, in any season. Like, it's just so important that we forget we also have this other really important tool that, again, is in our bodies, available to us.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Maybe. And I love what you said about the darkness versus the light. It kind of brings me to another art prompt that I like to use. Yeah. So something I like to do when I feel like doing like a bigger project instead of just like a 5-minute reset is intentional painting. So I set an intention for a painting, and it's usually oil or acrylic because it takes a lot more time. And it's not about the outcome. It's never about the outcome. None of the art and the programs that I do are about like the outcome of what you're making. It's about the process and how you feel when you're making it, and the fact that you're being creative and you're exploring and you're expressing what you're going through. So a piece that I created, again, in the anticipatory stage, was it's an image of a dark path through the woods with the moonlight behind it. And it's something that I say will never be done because I don't think I will ever be through grieving, right? I don't think you ever finally finish it. But the purpose of it was that every day for an hour, when I could find it, I would sit in front of this painting and I would work on it. And as I work on it, the whole time, harnessing the fact that, yes, I'm in the darkness. Yes, this really sucks right now. There is light on the other side. I don't know how I'm going to get to it, but I'm going to get to it. And I just have to, as I was painting, just really sit with that and trust that I'm going to get through it. I don't know how long this is going to take, but I'm going to get to the other side of the light. So I keep it somewhere where I can, if I'm having a bad day with it, I can just add a little thing to it. Maybe put something in a tree or like a highlight somewhere. But I don't think it's something that's ever finished. And I think that it's something that will always just be something to add to when I'm in the dark forest.
Yes. Jess, you have created so many freaking tools for yourself. Like, I mean, I'm sure your therapist has helped, but who you are and your creativity and being a yogi and breath work and all these things, like, I just think you've really encapsulated so many beautiful things that I feel are feminine in like the creativity piece and also the body piece. Like, there's something really flowy about.
I love that you say that, because that's where the name Creative Current came from.
Oh shit!
Was being from being in a state of flow. Like that is what I've been chasing. I feel like my whole life is like, it's not. I've never considered myself to be like a great artist. Like I have my degree in painting. Sure, I spent 4 years in a studio going at it. I come from a musical family, and I love to sing and I love to do musical things and write music. I never consider myself to be like an excellent version of any of those. I love being in the process. I love going into a state of flow. I love when time disappears because I'm creating and I don't care about anything else that's going on. And it's not that I think I'm making something wonderful and magical. It's that I just don't care about anything else. I'm just enjoying the absolute process. And that's something that I really try to incorporate into every program and every workshop. Is like, you know, I recently did a paint and sip with these college students, and they were like, am I doing it right? I'm like, I don't know. Are you? And they hated that answer. They're like, no, I want to know, like, am I doing it right? I'm like, I don't know. What do you feel like it needs? Do you think that the moon can be green? Go for it.
I love that. Yes.
So yeah, I chase that state of flow. And thank you for saying that. It's taken a lot of time to do that. Just to, you know, take it a little deeper too. I am somebody who struggles with high functioning depression. And I know that's not like a clinical diagnosis. It's more like from what I understand, the way that you experience your depression, right? So it took me 20 years to even admit that out loud. I really only said it out loud to a couple of people before. But it's because my understanding of depression is like people can't get out of bed, right? They are so low, they can't take care of themselves. And I always felt that if I were to admit that I have depression, that's discrediting those people who are truly suffering, right? I always shoved it down and thought, this is, you know, the way I feel is a result of my own doing. So I need to undo it. I need to fix myself. So I have been trying different things for so long to try to mend that and try to fix that, instead of just accepting that, you know, yes, there's a problem and maybe it's chemical.
Yeah.
Maybe professional help is, you're not entitled, but like you are welcome to get. Yeah, you can have access to that. And it's not taking it away from somebody who may be having suicidal ideation and you're not. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't get help. So I think a huge part of what I do, you know, not just with my programs, but just in general, like I want people to know that you do not have to hit rock bottom in order to start to feel better. And I think that 20 years ago, Jess should have been told that, you know?
Yeah, but everything's right in its timing, you know?
Totally.
Like,
yeah.
Can I ask, do you know the Enneagram? Have you heard of the Enneagram?
Don't. No, you told me about the Enneagram, and it's something that I just like, I looked it up and I just don't remember what it was. I don't remember what it was. Yeah.
Okay. Well, there's a 4 who is like the most creative number. And I think, okay, I like don't know the Enneagram, guys. So if you're listening, be like, that's not true. But
you're wrong.
But you're giving me like 4 wing 3 vibes, and 3 is the achiever. But 4 is everything. 4 is darkness and light, and they just relish in both. More darkness than light, right? Like just the pain, and they're just so beautiful and so deep. They're so
they hide
deep.
Behind the light. Is like the light like a front?
No, I think they can get there, but I think they'll choose to feel like the depths. And I think majority sometimes is the darker feelings, if you will, whatever the hell that means, right? But like the depression or the, you know, it's kind of dramatic, and you aren't dramatic in itself, but I think there's something that you can access, and that's something very unique about you, where you access the depths of your emotions.
That's resonating. That seems pretty accurate.
Yes, and you will yourself into processing them.
Yeah.
That's, I think, the trap of the 4. They can just be trapped with them. You have willed your way out of them and say, "Ooh, this is it. I'm feeling it. I'm going to process this. I'm going to put this paint on this paper. I'm going to do breath work. You allow it to move through you to then, again, it's like holding the depths of it all, which feels really exhilarating and exciting, and also so freaking painful, you know?
Yeah. That sounds so spot on.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, I don't know how accurate it is with the Enneagram stuff because I don't know it, but descriptive wise, I feel like you're like, yeah, you just got in there.
Okay. Yes. The disclaimer, I am not I know someone that can help you with that, Erin, with the Enneagram. What's her name? Live in the Enneagram on Instagram. I can follow her. But she like retyped me and has changed my whole life. But I think sometimes like that for me, astrology is really important too. Like all of these things, I think were just puzzle pieces that allows you to be who you are instead of like, why am I functionally depressed all the time? Or what would you call it?
Yeah. Well, it took a while to get there too. I don't think that I ever actually felt that way. I think for such a long time, I felt like I dabble in this, I dabble in that. I'm like a Jill of all trades. And that I felt like that made me lesser because I didn't have like one specific thing that I was like, running with and excelling at. So I was always looking for that one thing, right?
Yeah.
But then I think, over the last couple of years, I realized, wait a minute, you can kind of dabble in a lot of things and put them all together. And maybe that's the purpose. Maybe you're supposed to try on a million different things. And because what feels good for me this week probably won't feel good for me next week. Like I get bored so easily, right? Whatever tools I'm using this week, in a couple months, I'm so sick of that. Like, I don't want to journal anymore.
Yeah.
Like, I'm tired of journaling. What else can I do? And I pull out a different tool. But I think that's what it's really about. It's about like researching and searching for and trying on, right? Just try it on. Try on a lot of different things because you don't know what's going to happen and what's going to help pull you out when the time comes. You're just going to keep trying them all out again. And what feels good will feel good.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that's such a societal thing that I'm also working with of like, what are these societal things that have kind of trapped me into my thinking of like Jill of all trades? Why is that a bad thing?
Right. Why did I think that was so bad for so long?
Yes. Right. Because again, like this conform to something. And so anything special or unique or outside of that is weird or strange or isn't marketable or it's not successful. Right. Whatever the adjective is, negative one, right? And so I think there's a lot of freedom when you can embrace all parts of yourself, all emotions of yourself, all like pieces of grief with yourself, all of the, again, for 4-2, like just all of the creativity. And that's what makes you you. And there's something really childlike energy too in the creativeness. It's like feminine and childlike where we forget because we live in such a like masculine world of do.
Yeah.
There isn't a lot of space for creating, processing, feeling, right?
Play.
Or play.
Yeah. Getting back in touch with play. Yeah. And that's where I feel like the creative expression comes through. It's like, play with it. Yeah. Don't try to make it perfect. Just what happens if you put a little drop of green over there? What happens if you fold the paper in half and look at it? Like,
yes. Yeah.
Get curious. Just do some weird stuff and it's going to feel good. And then you're like, oh, okay, this might look like garbage, but I really had fun making it.
Yes. And I think we get caught up as moms, especially like, I don't have time to play or I don't want to play the way you want to play.
Oh, yes.
And I just want to like.
I don't want to play dolls today.
Yes.
I'm done playing dolls today.
Yes, exactly. I like, but it is like finding those avenues. And I think maybe that's why those paint and sip parties have gotten so popular too. I mean, there's wine. But it's like feminine energy, getting together, doing something that you normally wouldn't do. Like there's not a lot of spaces for that. And so again, I just appreciate the spaces that you're creating. And I would love for you to talk about like how, like what do you do at Creative Current? Like what are the events that happen and how can I come to one?
Awesome. Yeah. So I have previously everything's been in person in the Bluffton area and some back in New Jersey before everything changed. So my main workshop that I do is called the Balanced Creative. Depending on where it is, sometimes it's the Create and Meditate if there's no room for yoga. But what I typically do is when you come into a Balanced Creative workshop, first we do a cleansing meditation where we just get present. We let go of the energy that we came in with. We shed whatever happened earlier in the day, whatever argument you had with your kid, whatever it is, and you just get present, you get quiet, and you just shed that. Then we talk about a little bit of color theory and color psychology, which is just kind of like, I encourage you to choose what colors mean for you, right? I give you some background on different cultures and what they may think, what different psychologies may think. Some people think that red is danger. Some people think that red is passion and love, right? What does it mean to you? So you assign your colors to your specific feelings, and then we work on a watercolor experiment, depending on what the theme of the workshop is. I'll just do my Valentine's Day one is always creating self-love. So we'll do a series of hearts in watercolors, very flow. Usually we paint like a stamp almost, or like a cookie cutter, and press it on, and then you add the water to it, and you watch how the water moves around the page.
Oof.
And we spend time in that. You choose your colors, what's speaking to you that day. What is it that you've been feeling? What color would you give it? And what color emanates what you want to feel, right? Let's think about those two things. So those are the two colors that I really want people to play with in that scenario. So we play with watercolor. Then we do a targeted yoga flow. So for that specific one, we would do a series of heart openers. And everything is so beginner friendly. Like if you've never done watercolor anything, if you've never picked up a paintbrush, you've never stepped on a yoga mat, and you've never meditated, good, you're in the right spot. Like this is the best place to get your first taste of it. So anyway, we go back through the yoga flow. And at the end of the yoga flow, I walk you through a color meditation, clearing out the old, bringing in the new. And then once that's finalized and we kind of come back to our bodies and we sit up, we choose a mantra or just a word that really speaks to you. And we just write it real big or like a bunch of times on your watercolor project, so that you do have something tangible to take with you. But it's really about the experience and the process of you creating and moving, and just kind of coming out renewed and refreshed. Yeah. So that's my in person.
Yes, but I'm like grabbing 5 of my girlfriends right now and going on a plane, like into a retreat. Yes, like I know we talked about retreats, like in doing that one day, but that feels like such a retreat vibe. And
that
I
want to be short. They can be long, depending on, and like some retreat experiences. I've been asked to do a couple of those, and like I would do that all day with you. Like, how long do you want it to be? I can create something along those lines to kind of totally fill that entire day for it. So like that's the in-person option. Coming in January, I'm starting to offer these workshops online, and I'm really excited for it. It's something that's totally brand new. Some like that, what we like to call nervous-sighted.
Nervous-sighted.
Yeah, totally nervous-sighted. So I'll be able to offer that specific workshop. We'll do on a weekly basis. So people can sign up for like 4 packs of that or something like that and join me for that. And then I'm also going to be offering what I'm calling Inspired Inks, which is a 30-minute doodle, like lunch reset. So you'll come on and you can do it with like pen and paper, pencil, your kid's crayon, whatever you have. Yeah. And it'll just be a quick 30-minute middle of the day reset where we meditate and doodle, and I guide you through that whole process.
Fun.
I think something like short, and especially people who like, I'm technically a stay-at-home mom. Midday resets might not happen.
Mom. Love those.
But like I think back to my corporate days too, when I was working in an office and I had that like 1 hour lunch. I'm like, how am I gonna like make it through the rest of the day?
Yes.
What can I do so that I don't go in there and want to put my head in the oven?
Yes, exactly.
So I think midday reset is really great for that. So I'm looking forward to that one. But I also have coming up in January, my mom's 5-minute reset. And basically what that is teaching moms to take just 5 minutes each day. Number one, figuring out how to carve out that time, where to squeeze it in, and when to use it best so that you can help it like stretch longer, like take that energy with you through the hard parts of the day. So I help them analyze that and then try on all of these different grounding tools and techniques like journaling, mindfulness, intention setting, visualization, affirmation, creative expression, mindful movement, and connecting with nature. So each week has a different focus where you're just going to try it on for 5 minutes a day. And at the end of the week, we'll reflect and see what worked for you. Did you like that method? Did you hate that method? What came up? What were your blocks and how can we get through them? And then so there'll be options for that to either do self-led, so you can purchase it so that it comes each week to you and you do it in your own time. I know, as mom, kind of hard sometimes to commit to a specific time and day of the week for anything.
Yes. Yeah.
But I'll also have an option for group connection. So we'll meet once a week at the end of the week to talk about how everything went as a group so that you can see that you are not alone in this process. There are so many other people who are trying to figure it out as they go too. And then I'll also offer one-on-one guidance where I can work with you for an hour a week. We'll dive in. We'll really get into what's gotten in the way for you in the last week. How did everything sit for you? And what can we do to really make this work for you? And then at the end of that, you can do more one-on-one guidance where I take you deeper into whatever the one or two things that you tried on during that 8 weeks and really help you just run with that.
Oh, I love it. Like really incorporate it into your life. Yeah.
Once you figure, I think it's important for you to try on a lot of different things. Like you said before, like you don't know what's going to work right away. Or maybe it's just intimidating of even knowing how and where to start, right? If you just hear the word mindfulness, you're like, well, how the hell do I start just like being mindful all the time?
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to show you in just a couple minutes a day. Here's how you start. It's just a couple minutes here.
Yes.
Yeah. I think it's important to try it.
Yes. And I, again, just want to like reflect back to you. Like, I think what a wonderful guide you are. I just feel you're very relatable and kind and creative and like just create so much space. I think you're just an inviter. You're just like inviting so many people in. And I think especially moms of like, I know what it's like. I've been through it and I've worked it. I mean, I'm sure it was hard work, but it feels very like the way you talk about it, I was like, well, this is actually how my life is now.
Yeah.
I take care of myself constantly and I prioritize that in order to do X, Y, and Z, in order to grieve, in order to be a mom, in order to do this. And I think just feel like that mission is so aligned with us of like, it's so much hard work to do that for ourselves. And it also smells like screaming from the rooftops, like you can do it too. And we can all do this together and feel fucking better. Like,
absolutely. And you don't have to commit to these giant time chunks in order to do it. I think that's the other roadblock people think is that like, well, I don't have an hour to go to yoga. Yeah, neither do I. But, know, I have 5 minutes to go breathe in the closet. Like,
yes. To do a little twist.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's, about taking it in slow drips, as I've heard you say before, like have it all come in slow drips and like bite sizes where, it's not going to hit you in the face and overwhelm you when you start.
Yeah.
We want this to be a sustainable change. We want this to be something that you take with you forever, not just, to get you through the next couple weeks when we're working on it.
Yes. Okay, I thought of something for you right now, but I don't know if there's space here for you this year, but I feel like leading people through grief in the holidays through art would be such a beautiful offer when you are ready for that, because that just feels so needed in the like 2 months coming up or the month of, but whenever that happens for you, it will happen for you.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I think that there's something about going through something with somebody, right? So my first reaction is like, well, maybe I go through it first and then I help everybody, with when I learn through that. But I think there's so much more to gain from being in the moment and being like, right, this is what's showing up for me in the holidays right now. This is how I'm dealing with it. Yeah. And maybe it'll help you if you try it on too.
Yeah. Again, like you invite them into the process of it. And I just think you invite them into processing it instead of like it's heavy, but then here's how you can kind of unload it a little bit or cry about it or whatever it is.
100% cry about it. Like, cry about it all the time.
Yes, all the time.
Along the lines of that too. It's like it comes to a very sensitive point of like, as a busy mom, you maybe have somebody crawling up your legs, so you can't cry about it right then, and it can get really hard if you don't notice that you're shoving it down. So I think it's like, I love to almost greet it, like invite it in, I guess is maybe the term for it, and to be like, hey, listen, grief, or whatever the feeling associated with it, whether it's sadness or anger or whatever it is, like, hey, I see you. I've got this going on climbing here. I can't get to you right now, but later tonight, we're going to sit with this. Yeah. But then also understanding that just because you scheduled time for it doesn't mean it's going to come up right then.
Yes. I mean, I've had grief in different ways, but I've actually just cried in front of my children not like balls.
Oh,
But I would cry, and then I'm like, Mom is just sad. I'm just sad right now.
yes. No, and I think
not
that's so important. Yeah. So something that I kind of love that my therapist tells me, she's like, you are so open with your daughter. Like, yeah, I will sob in front of her and just be like, I am sad because grandma doesn't feel good. Like, I just am so transparent with her to like every degree, with her, respect for her age and development and what's appropriate. I'm not inappropriate.
Yeah. Yeah, but we're
I
human.
think that it helps. Yes, and I think that it helps them understand as they grow that these feelings are normal. They suck, but they're normal.
Yes, exactly. And that's like how you take care of yourself is you allow yourself to feel it.
Yeah,
and contain it with yourself and not spill it
project
over.
it. Oh my God, yes,
exactly.
Because that's what happens. You shove it down, we're bubbling over.
Bam, bam, bam. Watch out, world. Jess, you have been so amazing. Can you tell everybody where to find you? And we'll put that in the show notes as well.
Yeah, absolutely. You can find me on Instagram at getcreativecurrent or on my website, which is getcreativecurrent.com. And if you go there, you can sign up for my email list where you'll be the first to know when you can sign up for my upcoming programs and workshops. But the place that I am most active is definitely on Instagram.
Yes. Yay. Okay. All right. Thank you so much for being here. We hope that everybody, if you are grieving this holiday season, we just invite you into that and know that I think come back to this episode whenever you need, because Jess gave us so many great tools of how to ground and how to be center in the midst of change and grief and joy.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Okay. See ya. Thank you for listening to our show. We hope we've created a space for you to grieve in what was lost and bring in new ways to honor your experience during this time. Please know you are not alone in your grief or alone in this holiday season. Sending you lots of love and support as we continue to hold space for whatever emotions come your way. We'll see you next time.